For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC's Tuesday press conference. It featured head coach Clay Helton, offensive coordinator Graham Harrell, running back Markese Stepp, and offensive lineman Jalen McKenzie. Shotgun, I'm going to start with Clay Helton. He did his usual beginning of the week spiel, which included a preview of the team's opponent, which is Utah this week. Utah is now the third team this season that's going to start its season opener against USC. But Helton made sure to clarify that there is a difference this week when it comes to scouting Utah. This time around, it's more about personnel matchups rather than scheme. It sounded like Helton knows what they're going to get with a Kyle Whittingham team.
Yeah, you feel like you have a better idea at least of the things that they're going to run and not necessarily being surprised by something on game day. But it'll come down to in-game adjustments regardless. Utah is going to have some specific things for USC. They've obviously been waiting to play for a couple weeks, so they're going to have some special things, I think, for the Trojans, if the game is played, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that the biggest thing here is you kind of know the scheme you're going to get, and that was the big question mark with Marvin Lewis, with Paul Rhodes, the defense coordinators they were facing the last 2 weeks. But you don't necessarily know the personnel because Utah is basically a brand-new team. You know, they return a consistent offensive line, and that's about it. You know, they got a couple receivers back, but on the defensive side, new defensive line, new secondary. They got a couple linebackers back. That's going to be the core of their defense. But, there's going to be a lot of new faces on there, but you feel like the scheme's going to be similar. So you may not be able to attack a certain player or have an idea of where you want to attack with a certain matchup, but you're going to have a better feel for how to attack the scheme that they're running.
We got to ask more questions about Kedon Slovis' arm, and just the ball that he's throwing just doesn't seem crisp. I know the coaches seem a little frustrated that we're asking, but we got to ask. And Clay Helton said, it just was a one-time thing. He said that we won't have to talk about it again after what we saw on Saturday. And I know Graham Harrell said it's not a mechanical issue. Kedon's mechanics are fine. He said, I don't know where Kedon Slovis got that when he said that post-game. So, Shotgun, I know you asked about it too. There was an issue with maybe breaking in the balls. What did you take away from the multiple answers we got?
Yeah, the interesting thing is on Saturday after the game, Kedon Slovis was asked about it, and he said, it's something mechanical. We'll get it fixed this week. We look back at it. Is there an arm injury? Is it, is there something contributing to this? Is it just the yips? And that's what Graham Harrell basically said. He said it slipped out of his hand once, and then, he thinks it got into his head a little bit. Clay Helton reiterated that, that it's slick balls and they were, that he wasn't able to get a great grip on it. And this is what happens when sometimes to a quarterback, they don't get a great grip, and sometimes the ball comes out uneven. I think from looking at it, we saw some different things, broke it down a little bit on tunnel vision about how the ball was kind of coming out of his hand sideways like a slider kind of does, and then correcting its path, and that's why you're getting that wobble in the middle of it. So there's some different ways to look at this. I asked, if they'd look back at the mechanics that he had last year and saw. That's what I would have done. Even if he said, you realize, hey, it is slick ball. Even if that is the case, let's look back at the mechanics and look at them from last season and show it to Kedon and say, hey, look, your mechanics are perfectly fine. This is exactly the same way you're throwing it last year. Look at this crisp spiral on it. That's what I would have done as a coach, just to give that reassurance to him, and then that would help him get over the mental aspect of it, I think, on Graham Harrell's side. But so I asked Clay Helton about, if you studied any of the film from last season, he said, we're not going to do with this. It had to do with the tackiness of the ball. It was just slick, and they're managing to get through it. He said it was, and then he said yesterday they had a practice. He said the prettiest balls that he's seen spun, basically, and said we're not going to be talking about this in the future. It's not going to happen again. So we'll see. I mean, that's a pretty strong statement. It's never gonna be something we talk about again, type of thing. So we'll see if it's the case. And then on the other side, when Graham Harrell talks about it and says, I don't know where Kedon Slovis got the mechanics issue from, where he thinks that it's mechanical. He said, he just threw one bad and then suddenly was in his head a little bit. I followed up with that with Graham Harrell on that about what changes when the ball's not coming out clean, when you have a wobbly pass. Does it change the play design or anything, how the play plays out, I guess. And he said the biggest thing is that your receivers are basically having to stop their routes. They're having to jump up and make a catch, that type of thing, more so than how the play develops and where you want to throw in the pocket or window. So I think Kedon Slovis probably has to put a little bit more air when the ball's not coming out clean. We did see, though, late in the game, better spirals on a couple of the throws, when he got in that clutch time. And I think that's the difference in him, the mental portion of it. Once he gets locked in, like, we got a game to win here, he threw the ball a little bit better there. So maybe it was just a mental thing. We'll see this week. Big thing to keep an eye on.
I know, and they're so confident that it won't be an issue that it makes you hold your breath a little bit, because those are some big statements that could age very poorly. So,
and especially the fact that you're going to Utah and the high is supposed to be 43. So the low is supposed to be 28. It's going to be cold. When it gets cold, that's another time when quarterbacks have issues, holding that grip on the ball might get a little slick. So, it's not the best game for him to go into with weather-wise and just be like, there's not going to be an issue at all going forward.
Yeah, it's something to watch for sure. And we got to ask Graham Harrell about his run philosophy. I know there was a lot of noise about going in shotgun for 4th and 1 and not going under center. Shotgun, you specifically asked, like, we're getting questions about going under center. What do you have to say about going under center? Because I know he's talked about it before, but we just had to get it on record again.
And, well, we asked Clay Helton, the media asked Clay Helton on Sunday about it. He said, I'll defer to Graham. So if the head coach is deferring to you, then you got to answer that question, especially because of how many message board posts and tweets we continue to get about USC not going under center at all in short yardage situations. It's not a part of their philosophy. It's not something they're going to do. So, but I wanted Graham Harrell to, have an opportunity to explain it. He says, just not something we do a ton. And Clay Helton said on Sunday, it's just not us. And Graham went on to further say that you have to invest a lot of time in going under center. Now, I've gotten a lot of tweets since then disagreeing with that, and comparing Pee Wee and how football and Pee Wee football people go under center all the time. But it's not just you go under and take the snap. It's also the footwork to be able to put, to be perfect. I think that's the thing. The difference there is Graham Harrell wants his offense to be perfect. That's what they're striving for. Not just, okay, well, we can put that in and – maybe you look bad one play, you look good the other. They want to be perfect on everything, and that's why they feel more confident in being under shotgun and doing things that they do over and over and over, rather than trying to install a new package under center. He said, I know it's simple and can be taught easily, but it takes a lot of time, and that's not something that they necessarily have, a plethora of right now. You don't have a ton of time, especially this season, when you didn't have a chance to work in the spring, you didn't have a chance to work in the summer, and now you try to implement stuff in fall camp. So that's his answer. I still think you could put in some under center stuff, but also, as we talked about on tunnel vision, there's different things that you can do in the shotgun formation that they're not doing necessarily so far this season in those situations, whether it be play actions or tossing the tight ends in motion, do some different things there.
I guess my question is, Shotgun, is we hear a lot about how this is an execution-based offense, and yet if you're not getting the desired result from your formations or plays, if you will, why be so stubborn about what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some different things they could still do in this offense from the shotgun. You can run some motions. You can leak out a tight end. There's other things they could do. So, either do that or change up some things. I wouldn't mind seeing more pistol. They've used it. They have the package in the playbook. They used it 3 snaps this game, 2 explosive plays off of it, a 48-yard pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown on play action, a 40-yard run or so. So, that's something I think they could do, and that just adds a different look, forces teams to do a little bit different game planning for you. And it's something they used sparingly last year as well. So that's something that you could use in your short yard situations and go play action off of it and throw to tight ends or do some different things, some jet sweep motion. There's some different things in the playbook that they haven't really shown yet. So that's the bigger concern to me.
Mm-hmm. We got injury updates from Clay Helton. There's a bit on the list. First off, Palaie Naote remains in concussion protocol. He did have a head injury during Saturday's game, so I believe he's still going through that. Brett Nealon got some work in, Clay Helton said, so it seems like he's working his way back from that ankle injury. Caleb Tremblay and Talanoa Hufanga both were limited in USC's light practice on Monday. So how much you want to take away from the fact that they were limited in the light practice, read into that what you will. And then Brandon Keely, who is suffering from a broken finger that he got surgery on, I believe 2 weeks ago at this point, he did not practice on Monday. So some injury updates, Shotgun, specifically looking at the linebackers. I know that they are limited on depth. What does that look like if EA is not ready to go on Saturday?
I think you turned to Raymond Scott again. I mean, showed some nice things. His overall game, there were some areas he's definitely got to clean up. But this is a guy who's played 7 career snaps before being thrust into the game on Saturday, defensive snaps at least. And those were at safety last year. You know, he hasn't played linebacker at all in college at this point. So, you know, I think he's only going to take a step forward after seeing some film. You know, he probably had some first game jitters getting out there, but played a bunch of snaps and did some nice things, showed some aggressiveness. So I think he's the guy that goes in there. The question is, do you leave him there, or do you maybe try to move Kanai Mauga or Raylan Goforth to that spot and get both those guys in there at the same time? Kanai Mauga didn't look great in this game. You know, he looked like he was still a step slow. I don't know if that's from the hamstring injury. There were a couple times where he was taken out of the game after plays where he just didn't have the right angle, wasn't able to make a tackle, and they threw Raylan Goforth back in there. So I don't know if that's where they're looking at right now. But you got to look and see, you know, what are the bodies there. They don't have a ton of them. You know, Elijah Winston is out. Juliana Falanico is out. Solomon Tulialapupu and Jordan Iosefa are both out for the season. So, you know, there's not a ton of inside linebacker depth there. So we'll see if they are confident enough in Raymond Scott and those 2 other guys at the other spot, or if you decide to go with some true dime packages with 4 down linemen and just 1 linebacker. That's something they haven't shown so far this season. You know, they've done a lot of dime sets with six defensive backs, but they usually keep 2 linebackers on the field at the same time. So we'll see if someone gets moved around, if there's something else there that they do. But that's something we won't really know since we don't get to watch practice anymore.
Yeah. Now, this Arizona game, we expected USC to at least try and flex their offensive muscles in the game, maybe even get a blowout, get some young players in, and we didn't see that. It was another last-minute victory in a game that USC probably didn't have business winning. And so, Shucken, you got to ask Clay Helton. We hear all the time, you know, I can't wait to see this team in November. This team is growing. And so you asked specifically about USC's potential, and the last time he felt like this team was at its potential. And what do you have to say?
He said the same things that we've heard, you know, that this team is growing, that it's a young team, and you continue to see players improve. And he talked about Drake London, Elijah Griffin, Keaton Slovis, and Markese Stepp. But that's the thing is college football is a 4-year process. You're always going to have young players. They're always going to be, you know, growing. You're going to see guys like Gary Bryant and Joshua Jackson and Kobe Pepe, guys that got their first action on Saturday. Those guys are going to grow as the season goes on. They'll grow next year. But as a team, you got to start performing. You can't always just be growing. You have to eventually start living up to potential if you want to be a championship caliber team. So that's the big question with this group. Can they get to that? You know, he said they want to put it all together. A lot of things have come together, and he thinks this team could be a special team because of the way they're bonded together. You know, they're extremely disciplined together. He looks forward to seeing them have a perfect game. But, you know, when is it going to happen? That's the question we're still left looking for in this. And, you know, I was trying to think back. When do you feel like the last time that this team really played up to its potential? Maybe you go back to Cal last year. You know, the offense looked really good in that game, you know, was able to come out and put up points. And that was a game you thought that might be a close game. Instead, they blow someone out. But that's the rarity. Unfortunately, you know, instead it's more often you think, hey, this could be a blowout and it's a close game instead of the other way around. So that's the problem with this team. They haven't lived up to they're not consistently playing up to their potential. And that's the thing that Clay Helton said they have to do is they got to be able to consistently play up to their potential.
Mm-hmm. And I sense the frustration in your tone, Shotgun, because it just seems like it's another year and we're sensing that same theme and pattern from a Clay Helton coach team.
Yeah, it's the same thing over. And I think that there are rooms where this team will grow this year and will get better. Now, with a shortened season, how quickly will it happen? Yeah. I think on the defensive side, I think the fact that you know, the first 2 real live games and live reps, and now can you make adjustments off of those? I think that'll happen a little bit with Todd Orlando. And maybe suddenly you're playing a team that's 34-17 instead of 34-30. And it looks and feels more like a confident win. The bigger questions are on the offensive side in those short yardage situations. If they convert, they are moving the ball really well. They are the first 2 games, they move the ball really well. Now, if you convert in those short yardage or red zone situations, you can put up 50, 60 points even. But that hasn't been something they've done. So until they do it, we're going to, be cautious and to advise that it will happen because it's been consistency has been an issue for USC's teams under Clay Helton.
Yep. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for Tuesday's press conference for Shotgun Spratling. I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.